Hey, what's up? I'm Guy.
I'm John.
It's our YouTube channel. Subscribe to it. Give this video a like.
Podcast below in the description. Go
Check
subscribe.
out geology.com/ham. 40% off all trial sets, and you can pre-order the new sunscreen.
Geology.com/ham.
So McVay's about to come out swinging. That's the other part of this. With or without Julio, I think one thing the Niners, the NFC West, the Cardinals, the Seahawks, everybody just has to be ready. When you go back and look last year, it's crazy. The Rams, John, were 22nd in the league in points last year. 22nd. And I was listening to, a couple weeks ago, I was listening to a podcast. I don't remember, it was one of the Rams writers was on and said that one of the things last year, McVay was just frustrated because he couldn't really do some of the basic stuff he wanted to do offensively because of the limitations they had with Goff. And that was Stafford. He's going to be ready to start throwing the ball down the field a lot more. Then he goes and sides to Sean. Then he drafts the very fast Tutu Atwell. McVay is, I know you told me you listened to his Flying Coach podcast the other day. I haven't listened yet. But I think McVay's treating this year like Sean McVay's comeback story. Even though we don't really think of him as he was been gone, I would think that he looks at himself as I did not get to do what I do in the NFL. So I'm fully prepared for the Rams to make a very concerted effort to be a top, 15-10 offense this year.
Yeah, to me, there's a video that he does have a lot of Gruden's mannerisms. To say the main difference is he's very successful, and John right now is just not. And then it's not like a Raider shot. It's just a fact. But the one thing different, even John in his heyday of like the older Raider fans I have in my life, they're like, I'm not shocked when you watch his team, and I think he frustrates some people with his conservative nature. He's like, Gruden's a conservative guy. And in fairness to John, the football he grew up in, right, played college football when like the 80s, his football mindset gets developed in the 90s and the late 80s. The game was very conservative. We've often talked about Andy Reid. Why he was such an outlier, all you got to do is like read the Steve Young book. For those of us that are younger that grew up, didn't see those mid-80 powerhouse BYU teams, they were like on steroids Mike Leach squad. I mean, they were bombs away. So the BYU crew was used to throwing the ball. The entire sport of football, guy, was not. Even the West Coast offense with Bill Walsh, which was throwing heavy, it was predicated on throwing slant routes and wheel routes to the running back.
Right.
It was not. Jerry Rice, I mean, he did just because he was a great player. They were not running constant go routes like they did with Randy Moss and Tom Brady. That's not the offense.
Well, think about what is the highlight from the 49ers blowout of the Chargers in the Super Bowl.
Wasn't it a slant route that he took to the house?
Jerry just goes.
Yeah. And wasn't he was known for, he's like, he would just catch that 5-yard out route. He'd take it to the end zone, 50 more yards. And that was kind of his thing. He was like Steph Curry. He never got tired. But to me, when I think Sean McVay, who, like LaFleur, for example, I know they threw a lot of touchdowns this year, but they clearly, he's very Kyle-y. They want to run the ball. They had a lot. They re-signed Aaron Jones. Rodgers' first year, when I think they thought he was trending the wrong way, I remember when the Niners played him the first time on that Sunday night game, the two running backs had already combined for 20 touchdowns. Like they are going to be like Kyle, very run heavy and pass off the run. I do feel like McVay would have no problem if like Stafford's comfortable like going 5 wide shotgun and just fucking let it rip.
Would you go back and look? So
and Packers do that a little bit with Rodgers, but it feels like Rodgers going, I'm throwing back.
Those are plays that have been called in the huddle. When you go back and look at McVay, last year they were 22nd in points, the Rams. It's the worst he's ever been ranked in points since his first year as an offensive coordinator in Washington in 2014. In 2017 and 2018, he had the number 1 ranked offense by points. He led the league in points in 2017. He was second in the league in points in 2018. In those years, he was a top rushing offense too. Okay, he was 9th in attempts the year he led the league in points, and he was 8th in attempts the year they were second in points. Now, part of that is you've got a lead.
You're in a lead. You're running the ball in the fourth quarter.
But I don't think.
And Todd was pretty damn good too, right? I mean, his best player was probably Gurley that year.
Todd was very good. There's no way he wants to be 24th in attempts, right? That's what they were. They were 24th in passing attempts the year they led the league in offense. And I don't have the breakdown here of like yards per attempt ranking, but I think in his mind, 5th year in the league as a head coach now, he's been waiting 5 years for Matthew Stafford or somebody like Matthew Stafford, or been waiting 4 years for this.
Well, and maybe I wonder if he'd tell you if you were around him, like they thought that Jared could just maybe not obviously be Matt Stafford, but could just keep getting better, and he got capped, right? They just found out he had a ceiling because they did sign him that massive extension. No way they did it without Sean signing off. And Jared was a lot better, I thought, in 17 and 18 than he was in. I mean, it's not even debatable. Last year, he was clearly just falling apart. Maybe lost his confidence or whatever. I can't recommend the Flying Coach. I texted Traeger. I'm like, that was really good. And I mean, part of it, I give Traeger credit, is McVay talks a lot. And he's a star. And I was thinking about this morning because we've been talking about the Rams and talking about this for a while. We just hadn't had time. Is McVay part of usually football rivalries? Like, God, I hate Belichick. Drives me nuts. Or, I can't stand Sean Payton. Like, there are, Mike Zimmer, that crusty old asshole. Forever it was like Parcells and Holmgren, all these guys like button heads.
They're villains.
You don't meet that many. Yeah, you don't meet, like, McVay's not only not a villain, he is extremely likable. And he is a massive star. And I think what makes it unique is sometimes when you get these huge personalities as a coach, you're like, a little hollow, not that substancy. It's not like that with Sean. Like, he's clearly a really good coach.
Well,
and that's what I think why so many people like respect him. It's like, he's good at his job. He's not just this outspoken, talks a lot podcaster. Because, Guy, if he had a podcast, I linked you in an Instagram, we'd be in trouble.
Wait, when did you – today?
No, probably like, I don't know, 4 or 5 days ago. Oh. That if he wanted to do like an NFC West podcast, I mean, he would just get a lot of listens. I mean, he's just –
if he just started making – if McVay started making Niner videos?
He's so good that – not that we didn't know this. He's been, talked about for a long time. If he quit coaching tomorrow, Louis Riddick and all those guys would be fired by yesterday, and Sean McVay would be the Monday. Like, he would not – remember Jay Cutler wanted to get into it? They, like, had to do some things with Kevin Burkhardt, like with other guys, and they had to do some demo tapes. No demo tapes. He's immediately like John Gruden, and he's calling Monday Night Football. Do you agree with that?
Yeah. I don't think those guys are fired from TV. They're just off Monday Night Football.
Yeah. I just mean their Monday night run is over.
Right. Yeah.
Like if Sean McVay's like, I've had a mental breakdown. I can't coach anymore. I just want to do TV, take a deep breath. He would be doing Monday Night Football. And it would be a really big deal, and he would be awesome.
I think part of when you're talking about likability, part of it is you think about sort of some of the biggest figures in the sport. Like you mentioned, Bill is obviously number one. Bill's not exactly – Bill doesn't share. Bill's not transparent. Bill doesn't – the way you see Bill's genius is by watching his football team. McVay is more than happy to explain himself, which is not a common trait for people in his position. Football coaches in general are not a very open breed. They're right. They're always worried that somebody else is gaining an advantage of them by things they say, and they don't want to be bothered with trying to explain stuff to the rest of the people who don't really understand what it is that they're doing.
Yeah, I do think they are with their own like coaching clinics.
Yeah.
High school,
I'm
college,
talking specifically
pros
about media availability, that type of thing. Right? Yeah, they love talking to each. Exactly, they love talking. I'm sure Bill loves talking to other coaches.
Well,
Bill would rather talk to
viral,
a high school lacrosse coach, right?
I think something went viral last year. Bill spoke at the Zoom high school coaching conference, and I think whenever he does stuff like that, he blows people away. Like, he has it in him. The difference is McVay, and I think it's just kind of a younger generation thing. There's really kind of less to hide. Like, what am I hiding? Obviously I'm not going to tell you like the special play we have called against the look. Now, you're right. It's a nature of football. It's a unique sport where in basketball, we're fucking throwing the ball to LeBron here. In football, you don't ever know the plays. Like, it's a tactical, it's by far the most tactical game, right? Because even in baseball, if I do some crazy shift, I can see where you're shifting when I'm up at bat, right? I know where you're sitting. In football, it's always like, well, he hit the look. He hit him with the cover two, but then they shifted to a zero blitz with the defensive end dropping into the flat, and the other guy, the rover, rotating. It's like, what the hell are they even talking about? But that's part of. And then they hit him with the look that they gave in 2017, but they brought the dude in the fly motion.
Yeah.
And there's
but
a lot going on.
recognized it just because he's got a fast CPU in his brain.
Yeah, and he jumped it, but he jumped a little too early, and he tipped the ball. It's just
And it was a
there's a lot going on.
And it was a 3-yard gain.
Yeah. Now it's 2nd and 7.
Oh my God, all that for that? Yeah. No, it's
Well,
and that might be part of his
think,
personality. It might be harder for him to be that guy than it is to just be himself, so he just acts like himself.
And I've always thought the key, in my experience, just around football coaches, but the more and more we've done just around other people in life, if you are true to yourself, and in different businesses it can make people uncomfortable, you're more likely to have success than trying to be someone you're not. I think most of the case, right, with what make the flying coach thing cool is like it all comes back to Mike Shanahan. And one thing Robert Saleh said was like, they asked him, like, have you been bugged yet in New York? He's like, well, I have a mask on when I go in place so people don't recognize you. And they all started giving him, like, Robert, you're pretty recognizable. You're a bald, darker guy. Like, they know who you are. But his point was like, and then McVay talked about, and LaFleur too, is working for Mike. There was just kind of a standard set how to treat random fans and like the way to, and you just realize all these guys kind of came up and they're all pretty, it was one of those that we'll look back, like the Walsh, Seifert, just that whole tree. And it really started with Bill Walsh, changed all these people's lives forever, changed them all forever. Even like Andy Reid and John Gruden, they're all directly connected to Walsh, even though they never quote unquote coach for him because it was Holmgren or it's just that. Mike Shanahan.
Doug Peterson is kind of several, right? He played for
big
those
time.
guys.
He played for Mike Holmgren. These guys are all connected. When we talk about Kyle a lot, it's really Mike, right? Because Kyle was not the head coach. Mike had to hiring like just all these guys. Now it turns out they've all financially changed a lot of lives, right?
Yep.
And he's a key one that like, and he connected to Gruden, 2 Grudens and a Shanahan. This guy, I don't think I've ever been more dead wrong on a call is when I like, because when he got hired, I think he was 31 and I was 32. I'm like, this is going to be impossible. Like no chance this is going to work. And obviously you don't know anything about him, right? Besides just the younger guy. I guess you'd heard his name because he was the youngest coordinator ever, I think, in NFL history when Jay started letting him call plays, right? At probably like 27 or 28. But it hasn't just worked. Like he's lived up to it. I think it gets back to like he really is good, and back to the Niners. Like the Niners have been kicking his ass for 2 straight years. Like when you're 2 team like in the division, if you lose 4 straight games to a team and you're not like a Jag, like a bottom feeder, if you're a good team, like that'll rattle you a little bit. Because it's one thing to lose a game, but when you get beat twice by a team in a year, it's like, God, can we not? What the fuck's going on here?